Afternoon and welcome to another webinar Wednesday. Today we are joined by the product management team at TriMedics. So welcome to Senior Director Murphy McGraw and Manager Lindsay Price. Now webinar Wednesday would like to thank today's sponsor TriMedics. As an industry-leading independent clinical asset management company, TriMedics helps healthcare providers transform their clinical assets into strategic tools, driving reductions in operational expenses, optimizing clinical asset capital spend, maximizing resources for patient care, and delivering improved safety and protection. So for more information, please visit trimedics.com. Today's webinar, as usual, is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Just a quick reminder about our fall MD Expo. We're heading to the Rose and Shingle Creek Hotel in Orlando, Florida from October the 13th to the 15th. So please join us for 3 days of education, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology products and services. For more information and registration details, please visit mdexpo.com. Okay, let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our brand new Webinar Wednesday trucker hats. So using the questions feature on your screen, let me know the answer to the following trivia question. Today is National Dog Day. Which breed of dog is named after a region in Mexico? I'll reveal the answer and our winner at the end of the webinar. We'll be wrapping up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on your screen. As I mentioned earlier, our presenters today are Murphy McGraw and Lindsay Price. So Murphy, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you and welcome everybody. Appreciate everybody taking the time. We've got a lot of exciting content that we're very eager to share here. So we're going to be talking about the power of combining smart technicians with intelligence AI in healthcare technology management operations. So just a quick intro for Lindsay and I. As Linda mentions, we both are on the product management team here at TriMedics. So very excited. We work very closely with technicians, day in and day out. A lot of focus on capturing feedback. A lot of tenure between the two of us, but very eager to get in and get rolling. So we will hit the objectives for today. And what we're really going to be talking about is, number one, how do these AI tools support technician workflows? So we'll talk a little bit about how these AI-powered agents can really help to streamline some of the administrative work that technicians are dealing with. We'll get into much more detail here, of course, as we get into the presentation. Number two, we'll talk about some emerging use cases that we're seeing from our vantage point. Specifically as we think about things like troubleshooting support, knowledge retrieval, maintenance support, things like that. Number three, we'll hit on considerations for adoption. And, as some or most of you probably know, adoption is of course critical for these tools to be successful. And there's a lot of rigor that goes around things like change management and governance and communication and training and support. So we'll kind of hit on some things that we've seen work in our experience, and hopefully you can take those back to your respective teams. And then number four, this will be a theme that we continue to touch on as we go through the presentation. But of course, when we think about these AI tools, we really think about them as augmenting or even supercharging clinical engineering expertise, not something that is replacing a clinical engineering or biomedical technician. So with that, we can get into kind of the first page here. I did just want to take a second and just talk about who we are as TriMedics, just for those of you who may not be familiar. TriMedics is a clinical asset performance company. We've got over 25 years of experience managing medical devices, developing healthcare technology, built by providers, for providers. And if you can see there, we have a number of services that we've kind of expanded into over the years, ranging from on-site services, with our experts, advisors, technicians. We've got technology-only solutions that kind of leverage the data and the intelligence of TriMedics and the things that we've candidly been using ourselves for the last couple of years. And then, of course, the combination of the two, kind of, our service with our technology as well. And all the solutions that we have in our portfolio, really tie into the kind of the value levers that you see there at the bottom. We ultimately want to help hospitals, save financially. We know that there's a lot of financial hardship in the healthcare space today. We believe that medical devices provide sort of an interesting lever for cost savings that may be going unnoticed. Risk reduction, of course, anything regarding medical devices that are in use with patients. Heavy focus on risk, whether that's alert recall, whether that's cybersecurity risk, anything else. Operational improvements, patient safety, of course, always at the top of our mind, always at the top of our customers' minds. And at the end of the day, also looking to help increase provider satisfaction, whether that's through increased turnaround time, better uptime on devices, or some of the other solutions that we offer. So that's really us in a nutshell. And we'll do one more page that just kind of highlights just kind of a by the numbers perspective on TriMedics. And we've got a lot of stats out here, but really what I wanted to highlight, because I think it'll become relevant as you kind of get a look inside of our minds as how we're thinking about building and enabling these tools. There's a lot of data that's probably sitting in your CMMS, much in the same way that it is for us. We've got over 7 million device records in our database. Our teams are completing more than 3 million, 3.5 million actually work orders per year. All of that information that you've probably been capturing and sitting on over the last, 3, 5, 10 years, whether that's with an in-house team, with a vendor that you're working with, that is really going to be kind of the meat and the gold of what's going to ultimately allow you to start to think about how do you build some of these AI solutions? Because as we all know, it's, garbage in, garbage out. And the more data, the more quality data that you have, the better and smarter these tools are going to be. So very excited to be here talking with you. And with that, we will get into the first real slide that we wanted to hit. So as product managers, we're always focused on solving problems. So we thought it'd be great just to kind of, help introduce this to the broader group, and hopefully, the folks in the audience are kind of nodding their heads as I go through some of these things. But number one, so we've done a lot of different surveys with our own technicians, looking at industry stats. And one of the first things that we identified is technicians are spending a lot of time just searching for information. It could be across, multiple systems. It could be across, multiple areas within the same application. Some stuff could be offline, some stuff could be online, some stuff might be tribal knowledge. So one of the first things that we set out to do with these tools is really just get everything into one place. And, that immediately is a major time savings, because now you're not clicking in to find, where did that manual go? Where did that knowledge base article go? Where did that job aid go? Where did that message from that person go? Or, how do I find that work order that I remember I completed 6 months ago and I made this really important note, but I can't find it? Bringing everything together in an experience that allows technicians to just, with one interface, quickly search across, hey, I'm working on this asset. Here's what I need to find. Almost immediately creates value. Second piece, just kind of doubling down on that, right? And I talked a little about this, but all that information is in different places. And so that really adds to the time trying to remember where the information is. Maybe you got to log into different systems, things like that. So not only creating an easy search experience, but because all this information is fragmented, that just really adds to it. And then number three, newer technicians that are coming into the workforce, they're not going to have the expertise, right? And that might be domain level expertise, that might be specific medical device expertise. It might even just be simply expertise with the CMMS platform itself. So if you've been working in this space for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you might know a lot of this stuff, right? Just tribal knowledge. But if you're in year one and you're really kind of feeling overwhelmed, that was something that we really wanted to put a focus on, because we know that there are a lot of newer technicians that are coming into this field. And so really kind of allowing them to hit the ground running became a critical piece of the puzzle for us. So those are kind of the three things that we had aligned around as far as kind of challenges, problems to solve. And so in doing so, we wanted to start to kind of paint a blueprint. So, if you're on the phone and you're listening and you're thinking about, how do I get my team to start thinking about this idea of like an agent that could work, for my techs or supplementing my techs. And so we wanted to provide just kind of this initial perspective of where to start. And this is what's worked for us. Number one, first and foremost, this technology has to live where the technicians already work. If you're going to force them to go to another system, another tab, you're already going to lose a lot of the productivity. So that was key for us is we need to make sure that this agent lives right inside the CMMS. That's where our technicians work every hour of every day. So that was step number one. And then looking a little bit further, troubleshooting guidance with step-by-step support and recommendations for things like repairs and PMs. This is really key. How do you make this agent deliver like an easy to digest PM checklist? How do you start to think about, a way to input error codes and provide immediate context or explanation as to what that error code might mean? Past repair resolution. I talked earlier that, a lot of CMMS platforms are probably housing a gold mine of internal technician repair notes, hospital reported issues, externally facing notes about the repair. Finding a way to harness all of that data to build off of the benefit of your own technician's expertise and past work is huge. And I would say I had the opportunity this morning even to go to one of our sites and talk with a number of technicians. And in showing them, some of these tools and some enhancements that we've made recently, as we got into the portion of the agent that actually pulled information from past work orders, I mean, it was like, wow, this is great. Like, it's cool that it can pull information from validated sources, different repositories, but man, we can actually look across the entire network of what's happened here. So that I think is really critical. Cybersecurity mitigation details. We know, of course, cybersecurity continues to be a pressing issue. More and more devices are connecting to the network. This is more and more, I think, becoming kind of the expectation of biomed teams. And so incorporating all of that relevant information into this agents is critical. For those of you who have experience in this space, this can involve things like pulling up MDS2 forms, digging into device connectivity information, maybe finding or developing compensating controls while you're waiting for a full and approved OEM patch. Having that information incorporated here is key because it is a part of everybody's daily work now. And then the last piece, I think intuitive navigation, just something that is easy to use. You don't want to use this as a way to create friction. It needs to remove it. I mean, that's really the whole point that we're after with these agents and these automations. And I think an interesting barometer that's been set here in the market now is most everybody has had experience with kind of the industry leading consumer facing AI tools. So everyone's probably got kind of a perspective in their head. If you go to your team and say, hey, what if we built a tech agent? Probably going to say, ooh, you mean like ChatGPT for biomeds? So considering that concept and just thinking about how do you really build something that is intuitive to use so that it feels second nature is really key. And it of course helps to tie into adoption. And something else that I just wanted to cover on this, how did we come up with this, right? Lindsay and I didn't come up with this in a vacuum sitting in the office. This is grounded in real technician voices and surveys. So we conducted a survey, over 500 technicians alongside some qualitative interviews to understand things like daily workflows, pain points, attitude towards AI, all before we really built a single feature. And we wanted to make sure that the agent truly reflected how the technicians actually work, not just how kind of the office stakeholders assumed that they did. And we did pre and post pilot feedback. We did feedback before and after using the agents. We allowed the team to measure behavioral shifts. We made data-informed refinements. It's not just kind of a build and release, build and release. We're really continuing to capture feedback, as I mentioned, even as recently as this morning, because we want to continue to make sure that this works for the technicians, not the other way around. So with that, I think this is a great kind of starting point as you're thinking about it. And some of this stuff may be inherent, some of it may not. But as we think about kind of the why spend time building this? What are the benefits that are going to come from a solution like this? For the technicians, certainly, accessing knowledge faster is key. Reducing administrative time to switch between different tools, hunting from documentation. All the friction that exists if you're doing repetitive things like, you got 100 PMs that you need to do tomorrow because it's pump month, or you got a lot of similar repairs. Just how do you think about keeping everything in one place and making it easy to do things, either sequentially or even things like parallel repairs that might be happening? Number three, I think, is a really interesting one, especially just in this new world that we're all living in. But these types of tools really allow you to democratize the expertise that a lot of our more sophisticated, experienced, tenured technicians probably have, by giving all of that information to these newer technicians to really help target in on where they need to be focused based on everything that you as an organization have learned over the last however long. And this is great. I mean, this is basically every technician is now your best technician, which I think is just incredible that we're even in a position to do that. This adds kind of that natural language interface into things, which just again makes it easier from a user experience standpoint, and may help with other kind of ancillary aspects of the job that are becoming more and more day to day. But bringing everything into one place, like the cybersecurity information we talked about earlier, all of this is just significant benefit to making sure that the technicians can really spend the time doing what they want to be doing, not sitting in front of a screen trying to navigate and figure out, where do I document this, where do I find it? And the benefits are not just for technicians. We do see that even tools that are meant to be used by technicians do have benefits for the health systems as well. So as we think about what that looks like, right, it's things like accelerating turnaround time. If you're able to find the information you need from a troubleshooting perspective quick enough, that allows you to get the device back in action even quicker, which ultimately helps improve equipment uptime, helps reduce unplanned downtime, really just getting that device to patient care as quickly as possible, as safely as possible, is always a critical focus. Any tool that allows a biomed team to do that, is of course very interesting and beneficial to the health system. And again, just kind of increasing that consistency across technicians. There's a wide range of technician sophistication and maturity and tenure. Tools like this really help to kind of standardize and create some consistency there, which we're really excited about. So with that said, just wanted to kind of set the table. Going to hand it over to Lindsay, who's going to kind of take everybody through, a little bit more of specificity on what the agent looks like, what it does. So I will hand it over to you, Lindsay.
Thanks, Murphy. So I'm going to help bring this to life a little bit, just taking a look at how the tech agent actually fits into the technician's workflow. So the interaction really starts with the technician asking a very natural language question while performing the repair or preventive maintenance activity, right? Instead of searching through the multiple systems, manuals, historical work orders, they can just simply ask the question in the flow of work, right? The agent is then going to analyze years of the service history, repair documentation, troubleshooting knowledge, and other relevant technical content. And within seconds, it can surface the most relevant guidance. So whether that's troubleshooting steps, error code definitions, previous repair outcomes, or cybersecurity recommendations. The important point here is that the technician remains in control, right? The agent's not performing the repair. It's just helping to reduce the time that we spend searching so that the technician can spend more time restoring the equipment for safe patient use. And while the technology is really exciting here, successful AI adoption does require much more than just deploying a new tool, right? So as organizations do begin evaluating AI within the healthcare technology management space, it's really important to recognize that success rarely is determined by the technology itself. More often, we see success is going to be dependent upon how well that technology fits into the existing workflows, how trustworthy the outputs are, and whether we actually adopt it in our daily work, right? So first, the workflow integration, that's critical. Murphy, I know you touched on that a little bit here too. But it is one of the biggest reasons why new technologies fail, is it's requiring users to change how they work. So here, we know biomedical techs are already operating in fast-paced environments. You're juggling repairs, PMs, recalls, cybersecurity alerts, and you've got to document everything. So we don't want AI to become another destination that you have to go and visit, right? It really needs to be embedded in the systems and workflows that you're already using every day, creating that seamless, intuitive experience that helps drive the adoption and efficiency. So the most successful AI solutions feel less like a new tool and just more like an extension of your existing workflow, right? And then data quality and scale do matter tremendously. To repeat what Murphy said, garbage in, garbage out, right? That applies directly to AI. A technician agent, as we've gotten into this, it's only going to be as valuable as the data it's built upon, right? So in clinical engineering, for us, that meant years of service history, work orders, asset data, documentation, that cybersecurity information, and a lot of that institutional knowledge as well. So when we see those data sources are kind of incomplete, fragmented, or inconsistent, it can be a much more difficult process for AI to provide accurate guidance. So that high quality, well-governed data is foundational, and organizations pursuing AI really should view data quality not as a prerequisite project, but as an ongoing discipline. The third one I want to touch on here is change management. So introducing AI is not just a technology implementation, it's really a people implementation as well. Technicians need to be able to understand where the information comes from, when to trust it, and how to incorporate it into their decision-making process. That does require plenty of communication, training, support resources, and opportunities really early on for technicians to experience value, right? So as soon as the techs see that the technology is saving them time and helping them solve problems faster, that adoption is going to flow naturally, and everybody's going to be going, how do I get my hands on that? I think actually, Murphy, that was something you said about your call this morning, your meeting this morning. Because at the end of the day, technician trust might be the most important factor here of all of it. And everything else we just talked about is what helps build that technician trust, right? So no matter how sophisticated of an AI model is, ultimately the techs are responsible for maintaining critical patient care equipment, right? That's really important. And they need confidence that the recommendations and output they're getting are accurate, explainable, and grounded in validated information. Trust, we know, is built when AI can consistently provide reliable guidance. It can cite its sources behind the recommendations, and it remains transparent about what it knows and what it doesn't know. So the goal here isn't for technicians to just blindly follow the recommendation. It's to give them that faster access so they can make better informed decisions using their own expertise and professional judgment, right? When you get these four elements right, the integration, data quality, change management, and trust, you can kind of move beyond simply experimenting with AI, and you get into creating sustainable operational value from it. So next, we're going to take a look at a practical use case here. You can think about a tech working on a Baxter infusion pump, and it presents them with an error code 324 along with a calibration failure. Traditionally, resolving this might require searching manuals, reviewing service records, consulting your peers, or even escalating it to a senior tech. With the tech agent, that process is totally streamlined. The technician just enters the error code. The agent immediately is searching all of the historical repair records and troubleshooting knowledge, and then it provides a guided resolution steps along with escalation guidance if needed, all in a single conversational interface, right? The result and impact here is that we get faster troubleshooting, a higher first-time fix rate, we increase the confidence and consistency for our techs, helping to reduce the downtime, and it gives us the ability to really scale that expertise across the entire technician workforce, right? So as we look at what this experience actually looks like in the day-to-day workflow, I immediately want to call out for you on this slide what you're seeing on the left. That's actually the technician's work order task within our CMMS system, right? So right where you're already spending much of your day managing repairs, doing documentation, and completing those service activities. This is really important because we're not asking technicians to learn a new application or jump between multiple systems. The agent is just embedded there on the right, directly in the workflow that they're already using. And that context is actually incredibly important for the agent as well. It means the agent isn't operating in isolation. Because they already have this work order open, the agent has access to all the relevant information already within that screen. So we can think about the make and model, work order details, asset history, service information, and just any other contextual data associated with that repair. As a result, the tech doesn't have to go and spend time re-entering information or providing a really extensive background, and the agent already can better understand the situation because it has awareness of the equipment and the work that's being performed. So in this example, like I mentioned, they simply type in, how do I clear error code 324? If you think about how this process typically works today, tech might need to go and reference service manuals, search the historical work orders, contact a peer, review troubleshooting documentation, or escalate to a subject matter expert, right? And none of those activities are particularly difficult, but they all consume time, especially when you have someone banging on your door asking to get that service back or the equipment back in service, right? So instead of having to search across multiple different systems and knowledge sources, they're just asking in plain language here and receive guidance right away where they're already working within that work order task. And what I want to highlight here too is the agent isn't just providing an answer, it's providing an answer with supporting evidence. So the response includes source references that you can see that allow them to understand where that recommendation is coming from. And in some cases, it is going to provide the direct links to video transcripts or other technical documentation. This is important as we kind of reference back. It's helping build that trust through being transparent and showing its sources, right? So to build the confidence that technician needs to really feel like they can use the recommendations, we want to make sure that's grounded in validated information, show that to them, and give them confidence that it's not just generated out of thin air, right? So this is where the power of AI becomes really apparent. You kind of move beyond this basic search, right? Traditional search engine might return just dozens of documentation, and you're left to sort through it and figure out what matters most. The agent has already synthesized this, and it's elevating the critical steps based off of the prior repair history. So in this example, it's not simply telling the technician how to clear the error code. It also calls out key troubleshooting considerations that might otherwise be overlooked. The example here that I want to focus on is the ambient light during calibration. So the historical repairs and documented procedures showed that environmental factors like excessive ambient light can contribute to the calibration failures that they were seeing. So the agent is proactively highlighting that as a really important step to verify before moving further into the repair process. And you notice the technician is remaining in complete control. They're still evaluating all of this and performing the work and making the final decision about how the best way to perform that repair. The agent's just simply helping them get to the right information faster and increasing the likelihood that some of those important troubleshooting steps aren't missed, right? So the combination of contextual guidance, source transparency, direct access to the educational content is really what's helping to build that confidence and trust in the technician's response here. And then rather than just starting from scratch on a follow-on question here, you'll notice in the next few slides that this isn't a one-time search. We know troubleshooting is naturally conversational. As the tech is gathering new information, they're going to ask additional questions, and the agent continues the conversation with them while preserving all of the context from the earlier interactions. So again, it reduces in less search time there, less information that you have to provide to the agent itself for it to give you a really good response. And then at the end of the day, our actual biomedical techs can spend some more time focused on returning equipment safely to patient care. So here you'll notice the agent actually followed up and asked me what other questions I might have about this device. And then we go, oh yeah, well, where do I find the slide clamp sensor calibration, right? And this is where that conversational workflow becomes especially valuable. The agent already understands the device, the work order, troubleshooting steps that it's provided me that I've tried, and I don't have to repeat myself. So instead, the agent is just refining its response and providing more targeted guidance that helps move that repair forward and quickly identifies where the tech can actually find the relevant procedure. So if we take a look at that response here, It does provide detailed information about the calibration process, where the tech can find the relevant procedures, and we're moving from that simple error code lookup into that interactive troubleshooting session. This type of contextual guidance is significantly reducing the time techs spend moving between systems and searching documentation. And it goes simply beyond identifying where the calibration procedure exists, right? It's giving them information they need to actually move forward and determine what to check next as well. So giving them that increasingly targeted information as the troubleshooting process unfolds. And as we do this, it's also evaluating the response and the input we get after this, what a tech does with it, and the feedback that they can provide us is equally as critical for this as well. So when we look at this, we don't want to make any AI system to be treated as static, right? We want technicians to have a simple way to provide feedback on those responses, indicating what's worked, identify areas where guidance can be improved. As Murphy mentioned, we're also going out on site, getting in person, talking to people, doing surveys. But we wanted to give everybody a way right within the tool to give us feedback when they're in the moment, right? So by incorporating the tech expertise into the process here, the system is continuously becoming smarter because it's preserving all that valuable institutional knowledge and pointing out the areas where we have room for improvement for the next tech that's going to interact with the agent in that type of scenario. In this one, the tech actually received the guidance on the calibration process, but maybe the recommended steps didn't fully resolve it, or they have additional context based on what they're seeing in the field. So rather than ending the interaction, they can just provide that right in the application here, right? And this is really important because some of the most valuable clinical engineering knowledge is going to come from the technician experience. So the feedback process creates a way for us to capture those real world insights and continuously improve the quality of future recommendations as well. So over time, system gets smarter just by the techs applying what they learn in the field and not just what's been previously documented. So we're building out more robust data for us to build better recommendations on. And it also helps build trust, right? So we don't want anyone just blindly following the AI recommendations. The goal is to create that partnership where AI is providing guidance and technicians are applying their expertise. But every interaction does become an opportunity to improve the knowledge base and make the next technician's experience even better. So now let's assume that maybe the calibration was performed, but the issue still isn't resolved here. The technician asks just a natural follow-up question like calibration failed, anything else to check, right? This is where the value of conversational agent really starts to stand out. So again, instead of starting a brand new search, it already understands everything that's happened up to that point in time. The device being serviced, the original error code, the calibration procedure that was performed, and those previous troubleshooting steps. So using that context, it then can provide the next set of recommendations and likely causes to investigate further, helping the technician continue moving forward without losing that momentum and needing to repeat themselves. And you'll notice the response isn't generic, right? The agent is referencing specific failure points and recommendations tied to that scenario, including validating the slide clamp sensor position, checking for that ambient light interference, verifying the sensor cleanliness, and reviewing the related component conditions before proceeding with further escalation on that, right? So rather than sending the tech back to search manuals, it immediately points them to the most likely next areas that they need to investigate. And that really mirrors how technicians naturally solve problems today, right? So we know troubleshooting is rarely just ask one question and you get an answer. It's more of this iterative process. And the agent stays right there with the biomedical technician throughout that process, helping to surface the right information at each step while reducing their time spent searching for like, what do I do next, right? Really feels like you're just talking with a coworker or a peer on that. Going into a second use case here for you guys, really focused on preventive maintenance. And we know this is an area where many organizations can unlock significant productivity and consistency gains. So while troubleshooting often gets the attention, right, we know PMs represent a huge portion of technician workload. And every PM requires techs to follow detailed procedures, complete all the required measurements, document those results in their CMMS, and ensure they're being compliant with manufacturer and organizational standards. So even really experienced technicians occasionally might need to reference documentation, and newer techs certainly can spend a considerable time just validating that they're following the correct procedure. In this example, the tech is performing a PM on a Plum 360, and the tech just simply asks for guidance, and the agent immediately can provide relevant procedure, including fluid side and patient side occlusion testing with step-by-step guidance, the documentation requirements, and that supporting educational resource via like video transcripts or additional training material. So what makes this one particularly powerful is the agent is actually doing a lot more than just retrieving a checklist. It's surfacing the most relevant information at the exact moment that the tech needs it, which is those required PM values, the documentation requirements, troubleshooting considerations, and the learning resources, all presented to them within the same experience right where they're working. And it does extend beyond efficiency, right? As we look at this and how many PMs we all do, it helps create greater consistency across the organization. So whether a tech's been with the org for 20 years or 20 days, they're all being guided through the same validated process using the same standards and documentation requirements. So it's turning every PM or repair into a learning opportunity rather than stopping work, searching, asking someone for assistance. They can immediately access the supporting knowledge, video transcripts, and all that educational content directly within the workflow in the CMMS. So over time, this is really going to help accelerate some of the skill development while still preserving that valuable institutional expertise that we have. So for health systems as well, the outcomes are pretty meaningful, right? You get faster PM completion, improved documentation quality, greater consistency across sites, and increased confidence that your maintenance activities are being performed according to any established standards that you might have. But perhaps most importantly, we're reducing the amount of time for the technicians that they spend searching for information and increasing the amount of time they have doing more value add work that keeps equipment available and safe for patient care as well. So taking a look at the conversation on this one, it does begin right within the preventive maintenance work order task activity. Just like the repair example, we're already in the CMMS, we have everything open, and it has the context surrounding that maintenance activity. This is really important because the tech doesn't have to start by telling them what they're working on, what model it is, right? The agent already understands much of that context from the work order itself being on this page and can provide specific guidance to the task at hand. In this example, they're saying, give me the checklist for fluid side occlusion and patient side occlusion. Plus, what do I need to record on the PM checklist? Now, if you think about everything wrapped up in that question, the tech isn't just looking for a procedure, right? They really want to know the testing steps, the required documentation, the measurements that need to be captured, and the information that ultimately has to be in the CMMS. So historically, that information may have existed in multiple different locations, maybe an OEM manual, maybe an internal PM procedures or separate training materials, and documentation requirements may be separate from the testing instructions themselves, right? Everything a little bit compartmentalized. So the technician's challenge isn't that the information doesn't exist, it's just that it's often scattered across multiple sources. And here, the agent is bringing all of that information together into a single conversational experience rather than forcing the technician to hunt through multiple different repositories. It can just easily consolidate all of that here for you and bring that right to the surface when appropriate, which dramatically reduces the cognitive load on the technician. Instead of spending time just trying to find it, they can focus on performing the PM correctly and efficiently, right? And that's really the theme of this use case. We're not trying to replace technician expertise. We're trying to make expertise and knowledge more available and more accessible, more repeatable, and easier to apply directly within the workflow where the work is already happening. So from the tech's perspective, simple question, behind the scenes, the agent is really orchestrating information across multiple knowledge sources, transforming it into actionable guidance delivered at exactly the moment that it's needed here. Now you can kind of see the response that the agent was giving to me. And instead of returning just a generic document or list of search results, it is synthesizing and presenting that in a way that's immediately actionable. the tech is receiving specific fluid side, patient side occlusion testing procedures, along with the measurements and values that they have to capture as part of the PM documentation process. So instead of relying on memory or manually navigating procedures, they have a guided workflow available on demand, which can help reduce variability while we're ensuring that all of those tasks are completed consistently. So significant opportunity to improve consistency across your entire biomed team. Especially if if you're spread out across, you might have a tech in Indy, another in Phoenix, another in Boston, and they can all receive the same validated guidance and follow the same documented process and capture the same required information, regardless of where they are, their level of experience, what training they have, or who they're able to contact for more information. So it also helps reduce one of the biggest risks associated with PM activities, which is misdocumentation or that we accidentally skipped a step, right? So by surfacing required values and documentation right here, giving them a quick checklist on it, the agent can ensure that the techs complete the maintenance activity fully and consistently the first time. So again, helping to save some time where you don't get to the end of it and you realize you missed something and you don't know where you went wrong, right? And what's really happening behind the scenes is knowledge transfer. So every interaction here that you're talking to the tech agent itself, it gives you an opportunity to really reinforce the best practices and institutional knowledge. And you're not relying solely on tribal knowledge at that one shop or having to bug the senior tech every time for questions, right? And even your less experienced techs can access guidance that's helping them perform with greater confidence while continuing to build their skills. So while this might appear to be a simple PM checklist, it's really demonstrating something a lot larger to help standardize execution, improve documentation quality, and scale the expertise across an entire clinical engineering organization. And then as the conversation continues here, you'll see that the agent's providing additional detail and supporting information. And this is where it really starts functioning as the productivity and learning tool. So they're getting not only the checklist and documentation, but they're getting the additional basically explanations and educational content. So here where we have the view video transcript, they can just click right into that. For newer technicians, this could significantly shorten the learning curve they have. And for experienced technicians, it might just be a quick sanity check, right? Provides quick access to information they might only need occasionally. But the real value is that knowledge is being delivered in the context, and you're not having to stop your work to search a training portal, review those manuals, or call a colleague, right? You can continue progressing through the PM while accessing increasingly detailed guidance just when you need it, right? And that's going to drive that consistency, reinforce those best practices, and help scale the expertise. There are situations where you do want the deeper context, right? So that's where the agent acts as this bridge between that operational guidance and the educational content, really helping techs learn while they're working. So in this case, they just wanted additional context around the PM procedure, selected the video, and it brought them to the exact moment in the transcript that helped solve that problem. So the tech can move seamlessly from procedural guidance to training content without disrupting the work they're performing. And you can see that it takes the tech, exactly to that right point, which again is saving valuable time. And it's also very, very helpful because everyone learns in a different way. Some techs might only want that checklist. Others are going to want to understand the entire rationale behind a test to review the detailed procedure before they proceed. So when we connect the operational guidance with training materials, the agent really helps technicians learn in the moment, which reinforces best practices, right? When you're doing it hands-on, that's the best way to learn at the same time. But you can read it, you can view it, you can watch it. And then it's making it very scalable and accessible for everyone. And then last on this use case, you can go in and actually see the video here. That's where we've taken the next step here. And we're embedding that learning still directly into the workflow. So it's not just answering questions at this point, it's really connecting text to that institutional knowledge and the educational resources. Rather than stopping the PM, opening another application, searching for the training video, searching where in the training video they have to go, this will guide them directly to that point. So for the newer tech, it really is a real-time coaching moment. And for your more experienced tech, it might be that quick refresher where just on a procedure they don't perform really frequently. Either way, learning is happening in the context of the actual work, right? And it's probably the most effective way to really reinforce knowledge and build confidence as you're going through it. The technician isn't just following steps, they're really able to understand the rationale behind that and see the procedure demonstrated through validated training resources. Uh, from here, I have one more use case for you as well. And this is all about how you put your organization's repair knowledge to work. So one of the most powerful capabilities of the tech agent is its ability to turn past repairs into that actionable guidance for future work. So you can imagine a device arriving in the biomed shop that a tech has never seen before. And rather than spending valuable time searching through documentation or tracking down a subject matter expert, the tech can simply ask the agent how similar issues have been resolved in the past. So here you can see the agent's response to that question. This is where that organizational knowledge becomes a force multiplier, because rather than the tech searching through years of service history, the tech can just simply ask the question here in natural language, and the agent is transforming all of that historical repair data from the prior work orders into immediate actionable guidance, helping them troubleshoot faster with greater confidence. And it's really highlighting fixes that have worked well before and providing some of the links to those previous work orders to dive a little bit deeper in there. And now I'll hand it back to Murph, that you guys have had a chance to see the agent itself. Talk just a little bit more about AI and the healthcare technology management space.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, hopefully everybody appreciated the kind of deeper dive there. I know super excited from our standpoints about what we're putting into the hands of our technicians. Just wanted to cover up on a couple of things here, and I see some questions coming in, so we'll get to those. But just a couple, kind of our perspective on AI development within HTM. Yeah, I think there's a lot of concerns about how AI is being developed, how it's being rolled out. So we have these kind of key principles that we think about internally. Innovate with intent. We want to make sure that we're solving real problems. There's no worth in investing in AI simply to say that you're investing in AI. Real problems. Talked about the time spent searching for documentation, the friction when looking up newer technicians, potentially not having the same level of experience. That's where we started. Number two is always maintaining a client-centered approach. For us, this really means understanding the existing workflows of our end user. In this case, our client is a biomedical engineer. For us, that meant seamlessly integrating into the place they already work, which is their CMMS. And then number three, I think anything in this highly regulated environment is really just balancing speed with impact. AI can absolutely accelerate transformation, but we know that when we're working in this space, there's significant rigor and safety involved in implementing these tools. And for us, we talked a little bit about kind of our piloting process, our feedback process. A big part of that was also early on incorporating our quality teams, our regulatory teams, our risk management teams. So we've kind of been in lockstep from the get-go on this, and just making sure that everything that we're doing, every answer that's getting provided, is coming from a validated source and is being used in the way that we expect. So this is just kind of a brief framework as to how we think about AI development in our space. And then I'll touch a little bit on some of the challenges within AI adoption. There's a lot of things that are out there that might create friction or impact adoption. And these challenges are not just technical. A lot of times that's almost the easy part, right? As Lindsay mentioned, it's people, it's process, it's organizational, it's cultural. One thing I would highlight for sure, I think, is the upper left there, the development costs and resources. This is probably going to be the first hurdle, and making sure that you have a vision, specific measurable goals associated to this, so that you can really track, was this successful? Did we get the ROI that we anticipated? If you don't have those things before you get started, it's going to be really challenging to measure whether it was a successful investment. And I think this space in particular is just very interesting. And I was reading an article yesterday just about kind of the evolving economics of AI tools and agents specifically. And token usage and token costs continue to fluctuate. Different models, continue to carry different costs, and they're better for some use cases, better for others. So it's really an evolving landscape in a way that I think a lot of us probably haven't seen before. And so things that may not make sense today might make sense in a week or a month, as costs reduce. And so I think it's something just to continue to monitor, but having a very specific measurable goal that you're trying to achieve is always a benefit. And then data quality and availability, we talked about, garbage in, garbage out. That's key. That's critical. And in this space in particular, right, it's got to be validated, trusted data. And that was really important for us as we were building this. Privacy, security, of course, top of mind. Anything that we're doing in healthcare needs to keep this top of mind, right? AI or not. Misaligned stakeholders is always challenging. I think for us, making sure that we get the right people in the room early on in the process so that they can understand how this tool is going to help them or their teams is always a benefit. Training and education can be tricky. Some of these tools are complex. Making sure that you put that focus on it so you're not just kind of rolling it out and saying, let me know how it goes. It's like we're going to help do train the trainer approach, or we're going to have some supporting materials or an FAQ page. Anything that you can do just to really help bridge that gap is key. And then, of course, trust. Lindsay touched on this a lot, so I won't go too deep into this, but technician trust, clinical trust. I mean, AI needs to be seen as a trusted partner. And we found that, we're able to get over that hurdle, certainly within our environment, but it's a tough one. And I think looking at a lot of the other things on here all kind of ties back to, is this a trusted partner? So those are the challenges that we see, and kind of how, a little bit of a perspective on how we're thinking about it. And then just wanted to touch here at the very end on, the future of the technician role. We've talked a lot about, how these tools augment workflows, how they help save administrative time. For us, really these four things. We're driving significant efficiencies within the workflows that exist today, and in some cases, we may be creating brand new workflows. I think that's an important piece of this too. Implementing AI does not need to be map out the process and think about what could be automated. It may be, let's rethink the process from the ground up. And what would it look like in a world where you have an agent that can do these things, or agent to agent communication? And it really kind of, forces a bit of a paradigm shift and a mindset shift, I think. So that's number one. Technicians, I think continue as they always have been to be really kind of technology enabled strategists. How do you continue to leverage newer technologies? How do you become, data interpreters, AI collaborators? Every time a new piece of technology comes out, it feels like, this is the right audience that wants to pick it up, like test equipment automation, things like that. This is another tool in the toolbox. And so really just kind of embracing that, I think is where, we see this going. Human and AI collaboration, we've said it before and we'll say it again. This is not, meant to be a replacement for. This is meant to be a partner in, or an augmentation of the work that the humans are doing on site to get these devices, back up and in patient use. And then, of course, continued efforts and focus on the ethical and regulatory side of the house. With everything AI, with everything data related, this will just continue to be a focus. So those are kind of, just some points on kind of where we see things evolving. I think the biggest difference is just the pace at which we're changing. Technology evolution has happened for a long time. We moved from paper and pencil into digitized CMMS platforms. There's always an evolution on the horizon, but this one is certainly evolving at probably a quicker pace than most had expected. And then final slide. Again, AI is really meant to supercharge clinical engineering expertise. Trusted guidance, elevate skill sets, make sure the human remains in control, human in the loop, review, audit. This is all critical, but we see this as kind of the Iron Man suit or the Superman cape that can be put on top of the technician, really just to help supercharge the work that they're doing. And we're very excited about it. So with that said, I know we got a couple of minutes left here, so I will hand it back over to Linda, I believe, for a couple of questions that came in.
Perfect. Yes, we've got time for a couple of questions. The first one is, for smaller community hospitals or systems that are already TriMedX customers, is this tool accessible, or does it require a full clinical engineering outsourcing relationship to use?
Yeah, I can take that one. So today it is something that is part of our outsourced clinical engineering service. Certainly always continuing to look at opportunities where it might make sense to commercialize this as sort of a separate offering. But today it is something that we deliver as part of our service, not something that we sell standalone.
Okay, another one here is, what happens when the AI gives an incomplete answer during a repair? Is there an escalation path built in, and how is that feedback used to improve the model?
Lindsay, you want to take that?
Absolutely. So we do have a feedback loop right in the agent tool itself where you can give a thumbs up, thumbs down, provide that context and the response there on that so that we can continue to improve how the agent will respond in that situation going forward. And this is where we do say, there's always a little bit of trust, but verify. That if you have a question, you can also follow up in the agent and say, explain this more to me. Where are you pulling this information from? And it's going to provide those resources so that you can go, okay, I trust that it's coming from, this documentation we had or this SOP internally about how we perform that repair as well.
Okay, great. We've got time for one more question. It's, what feedback have you received from techs, and how is that shaping the future?
Yeah, I think happy to weigh in on this. So we continue to get a lot of feedback. I think number one piece that we've heard so far is this something that works on our mobile application? So we did start kind of with desktop in mind, and of course, as our CMMS is available as a mobile app for our technicians as well. And I think some of the benefits that come with that. This came up in some of my conversation this morning, actually, with the audience I was with. How do we think about things like voice experience, right? If you're maybe driving to a site and you want to tech agents, more as a hands-off kind of approach. So I think kind of mobile was a big one. There's a lot of discussion around, is there an opportunity for me to also, not only am I using this to help determine the troubleshooting steps that I need to take, but could this solution actually document the work for me? So that, of course, some sensitivity there, just given the regulated nature of the environment that we work in. But I also think definitely something that we're going to be keeping a close watch on as we kind of think through what our strategic roadmap in this space looks like. And yeah, I think those have been kind of the two big ones. We got some requests early on for some different data sources that we wanted to include that weren't part of phase one. And moving beyond simply querying the validated knowledge and into what Lindsay showed in use case number 3, where it actually pulled past work order history. That also came out of some feedback that we got from some of our pilot users. Hey, this is awesome. I love being able to kind of rapidly search and find what I'm looking for. But man, we've got like 10 million work orders worth of data sitting in the system. Like, it'd be great if we could just use that. So that's something that we're super excited about, and something that had come out of the feedback as well.
Perfect. I have got some other questions that have come in, but I will send them to you afterwards so you can answer offline. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for another great and informative presentation. Now, if you'd like more information about today's presentation, please visit trimedix.com. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is Chihuahua. So congratulations to our winner, Jeff Goldstein in New Jersey. Just a quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you'll be able to download your certificate once you submitted the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@ dpublishing.com. If you've missed any of our past webinars, including any by TriMedics, please visit webinarwednesday.live to view our whole webinar archive. We'll be back next week with another webinar. So again, please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and of course, complimentary registration. Thank you all once again for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.